Brian, Matt was telling us that it's potentially possible that Zadarius could miss week 1. Is there anything related to his situation that has anything to do with something other than injuries, or 100% injury related?
Oh yeah, he's working. Obviously he's working through something right now, and I'm hopeful that's not the case as far as missing game 1. But what he's dealing with is a little day to day.
So it's not contract related then?
No.
Do you have a setback on that? Maybe it was Monday or Wednesday that he first came off the NFI?
Yeah, I think what he's working through with that is just, it's kind of one of those things that is a little bit day to day, and we got him out there to make sure that see how we went in to get a couple good days, and then it just flared up on him again.
This is awkward for us. I understand you can only say so much about stuff. I'm sure he has a legitimate injury, but that doesn't mean that he also might not be unhappy with his contract. Has he expressed any unhappiness with his contract?
No, like I said, we worked through something earlier to kind of move money around and stuff, earlier, like right at the beginning of training camp, I believe. Listen, I don't really talk about details of contracts, but with this specific thing, I mean, he's got an injury that we're working through, so.
Hey, Brian, going back, when you brought in Kurt, what did you guys like about him with that workout, and how have you seen that sort of translate with the camp he's put together here?
Sure. Like most things with scouting, it kind of started in college. Obviously, we had a pretty good foundation of scouting him in college, and kind of liked him coming out a little bit. And then, as we were working through the quarterback thing this summer, we brought him in, had a nice workout, and he's done a nice job for us so far.
Regardless if it's the 53, the practice squad, is he your number 3 guy? Has he shown you enough to warrant that?
Yeah, I think he's done a really nice job picking up the offense. I mean, this is a complicated offense, and I think he's done a nice job picking it up. He did have some experience in Atlanta that I think, crossed over. And he's done a nice job. I think he's gotten progressively better, and I thought he had a really good first half last night.
When you look at the quarterback depth throughout the league, it's lacking in some areas. When we see what Kurt's done this preseason, is he a guy that can stick on a 53-man roster, whether that's here or elsewhere, and does that make some determinations on whether or not you can get him through the practice squad?
Yeah, we'll work through all those things. Still got another preseason game to go. He certainly has the talent to do that. Like I said, we're really happy with his progression and what he's done. I think he fits into the QB room real well. I think the guys like coaching him, and his teammates like him. So we'll kind of work through that as we go.
Brian, any thought on whether it was good enough for people to come to you and ask to inquire about trading for him, or
yeah,
you never tell?
Those conversations kind of started last week, not with just all throughout the league, and they'll continue through the next 2 weeks. It's going to be a little different this year, just because the whole cut right after this next game, and then having a bye week and stuff. So it's going to be interesting how everything flows. But those conversations about all players are happening right now.
Hey, Goody, I asked you, I think it was last year, about Alan Lazard and whether you regretted cutting them because you exposed them. And you said you had a pretty good feel that he would get through, so you could get him back. Obviously, last year with Chris, you knew nobody had film. So how do you guys without betraying your secrets,
Sure.
how are you finding out? How do you get a good feel for that? Because there's still risk involved, right?
Yeah, there always is. I think the way we kind of do it is we look at our own team, how we would look at it as if we were, outside this building. The information we have on our players is so much more, obviously, than the teams outside of here. So, really all they have to go on is, the preseason tape that they do have, and whatever history, whether it's college or past preseasons that they have. So I think when you really look at it like that, you can kind of get a better feel. And then just the difficulty at times when it's so hard to cut the players you have and to get down to that 53 every year anyway, than to add from outside. It can be even more difficult than that. So, and every team's situation is different where they are with their team, So we always take a long, hard look during this time of year at our team, how we would look at any other team outside that without all the practice film, with all the inside information we have, but just, hey, let's just look at the tape, the game tape. What does that tell us? And then I think you get a little bit better feel of what you can and can't do.
Is it any different with a quarterback like Taysom? You were part of the leadership at that time. Did you guys miscalculate whether or not is it harder with that position?
I'm trying to look back to that time. I honestly don't even remember the transaction.
So Peyton admitted that he was looking at McCaffrey on film and then noticed takes them, so like, it wasn't like he was even looking.
Yeah, but forgive me here, but was he claimed or did he go to
He
the?
was claimed.
Yeah, he was claimed,
Claimed by the
yeah.
state.
Yeah, I think at that time, if I remember right, it was, we felt pretty good about our quarterback room. And, I don't think it was one of those things we were trying to sneak him through anything. You know what I mean? If that makes sense to you?
Is that ever a concern with joint practices? Obviously Mike White went down and Jets saw Kurt all week long. Is that something you guys
Sure.
ever think about?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's one of the great things we love about the joint practices is that we have another team on our own field in our environment that we can evaluate their players. So there is obviously, they're evaluating our players as well. Again, we think the benefits outweigh those risks, but that's always, you always are concerned with that, sure.
Brian, we've seen obviously a lot out of Stokes and Myers. We've seen Amari do a lot. Newman was starting in the game last night. TJ's played a lot. Kylan's played a lot. I mean, how happy are you with your draft class right now? This rookie group?
Yeah, obviously it's really early, but I'm excited about what they've been able to do in their short time here. I think as much as what they've done on the field and the production that they've showed, it's just kind of how they fit into our culture, with their work ethic and being a good teammate, those kind of things. That's been really positive with pretty much all the guys. And I think also just like, how we viewed them coming out of the evaluation process. And then once you get them here, are they the same guys you thought they'd be? And they have been. So yeah, we're excited about that class. I think they're going to help our football team this year. I like the long-term future of a bunch of those guys. So again, it's really early, but they seem like good guys, willing to compete, willing to work hard. So we're excited about it.
Would you have thought at the beginning of the offseason that you might have two rookies on the offensive line, which you might,
Right.
to start the season? Would you have even thought that was a possibility?
Yeah, I think, certainly, obviously, that's not a usual thing around here. Usually those guys take some time to develop. I knew there'd be really healthy competition with the guys we drafted in 2020 and then, 2021. And I think it's, especially at that inside group, it's been really good competition throughout training camp. So I guess, I didn't really look at it as a possibility, but probably should have, so.
To follow up on that, the fourth round or fifth round guys, you talk about TJ Lang and Sitton and Bakhtiari and now Newman. What is it about that round or right in the middle there that you can find these guys?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Ted had a fantastic way of finding those guys, and I think we've put a lot of emphasis on our offensive line. Specifically, having a quarterback like Aaron, I think the emphasis on protection has been big, and I think just also being willing to take those guys, and then give them time. Some of those guys have come in right away, like the Josh Sittons of the world, the Corey Linsley's, other guys, like TJ took a little bit to get going and find his footing. That is one of those positions that I think, you see their best football, not initially, but usually year 2, year 3. Even David, he started for us early, but, he really, I think that was about year 3 where he really took off. So, I think we've had, before and then now with Steno, we've had a really good coaching staff and the way that they work with these guys and develop them. And then obviously we've taken a lot of guys too. So I think that's, the willingness to take them, it's important too.
Yeah, and you picked up Yash a few years ago after the draft. He was a super athletic guy, played a lot. Took him a while to develop, but what have you thought of his progress from back at 18 to where he's at now?
Yeah, no, I think Yash has done a good job. I think he's gotten better each year. A lot of credit to him for his work ethic and kind of patience and resilience. I think he's playing his best football right now and excited to kind of see where he goes. But he's, obviously he's got a lot of physical traits that we look for. He's played a lot of left tackle the last 2 games, which has been really good to see. And I thought he's had a nice training camp so far.
Coach LaFleur said you usually have about 45, in general, somewhere around there going into training camp here. Your idea was going to make the roster. Now we're in the last week. Do you guys know already kind of how many spots there is open?
No, I think as we get later in training camp, I think that number starts to kind of, shrink a little bit as far as, I probably have a lot less going into training camp. I think usually I'm around, we usually have a core of around 30, 35 maybe that we feel really good about, but there's so much that can happen with injuries and trades and different things. So as training camp goes on, I think that obviously that number gets smaller. But you guys that have been around here a while, there's always guys in that last preseason game that end up making the team because of what they did in the last preseason game. So, I think this preseason, our young guys have had a ton of opportunity. They've gotten a ton of snaps, and this game in Buffalo next week is going to be very, very important, and they're going to get a lot of snaps. So sometimes you never know where that's going to come from. Maybe it's on special teams, maybe it's somewhere else, but there's always guys in that last preseason game that make a name for themselves.
Brian, there will be a lot, but I guess a lot more time between final cuts and the opener. By a lot, I guess it's 4 or 5 days more than usual.
Right.
Do you think that will lend itself to more movement, than maybe you cut guys Saturday, you claim Sunday, and you're in the game prep Monday? Will it be more movement than it was in the past?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't know. I'm getting interested to see how this kind of all flows. You would think so, just because from a time perspective. At the same time, once we get past that Wednesday and people start, solidifying their practice squads and their 53, the players will be gone for a short period of time before we get them back. So I would expect more movement, but just because there's more time. But this is the first time we've had this much time before the opener, so I'm not really sure.
Ryan, the coaches, I'm sure, are really, cognizant of rep counts for guys at the tail end of the roster. Do you exert any influence on maybe upping that number on guys you really want to see in certain situations?
Yeah, Matt and I talk every day, specifically, early in the week about, okay, hey, what do we need to see from different guys? And, if the opportunity to put them in the spots we need to see them exists, and they do a really good job. The coaching staff does a really good job of getting those guys in the mix so that we can get enough information for the evaluation. So, yeah, it's kind of a constant conversation daily, but usually early in the week during preseason here, we'll kind of look at where we are injury-wise and what we have available to play and see if we can make that work.
I remember that Ted always used to say, with big athletic big guys, the good Lord only made so many guys like that. So a guy like Slade, who is big and athletic, and it was a weak D-line class. What did people miss? Why did he fall so far in the fifth, and obviously
that's a good question. I think like a lot of players coming out of college, there can be inconsistencies in their play, and that tend for them to fall at times. And I know that where we had him valued was much higher than that, but again, a 325-pound man that can do what he does. I think again, there's just not many of them out there. At the same time, there was probably some parts of his games that needed to be developed, but that's part of what we do here as well. And I think he's done a really nice job in a short period of time here, doing what Coach Montgomery wants him to do and learning. And obviously his production and effort has shown up in these first 2 games.
Referencing that things have been different, obviously, throughout your tenure, but throughout your tenure, how close is these last spots, or how much is it harder for you this year than other years, or is it kind of about the same every year?
It's hard every year just because moving on from players is tough. You'd like to keep them all, and I think we have the resources here to develop them. You'd love to be able to do that if you had that opportunity, and this will be no different. I think we have a very good squad, and I think this is a tough squad to make. But I do, with 16 practice squad spots, which is obviously last year was the first time we had that many. I feel good about when we get down to it after we get through this week. We'll be at 80, and then we'll get down really at the end of the day, if we're able to keep all our own guys, we'll have 69 players in-house, plus probably a couple, injured guys. So you end up keeping more guys around than you ever really have, which is nice. So, it's always hard this time of year to walk away from players you've seen give so much to you.
Well, speaking of that, players like Kurt, how much harder does it make then to think about keeping 3 quarterbacks, knowing that can take away a spot when you have a bunch of really talented, say, wide receivers vying for spots?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you'd love to be able to keep, just the 53 best players. It doesn't always work that way because certainly you need a certain amount of numbers at each spot. But I think, certainly positionally, you'll look at it horizontally, how you want to keep them and kind of have a target number. But then you're weighing, this offensive lineman versus this wide receiver versus that defensive tackle. So those conversations have been taking place for a couple weeks now, and they'll continue to take place. And you're really trying to find the best, 53 players that, make up the best football team right now. But as you guys know, it's just the beginning. You know, the 53 guys that will make our initial roster, by the time we get to game 4, 5, and 6, that'll change. And by the time we get to the end of the season, could be completely different too. So it's kind of constant, and you're trying to make the best decisions you can to give your team the best kind of ruggedness to get through a 17-plus game season.
The upside is 16 practice squad guys. The downside is you gotta go into the last preseason game with 80. Wasn't it 92 2 years ago?
Right, yeah, so forever we had the 2 cut downs, and then they finally changed that to where we just had the 1, which I think from our perspective is the best way to go about it. The more players available for that last preseason game, the better. This year they've changed that, so it makes it a little tight.
So your preference though would be to go, if you had a say,
Yeah,
go back?
yeah, my preference would be to have about 150 going into the last, you know what I mean? That would be my preference. But, yeah, the more the better. I just think, not only for the opportunity for the players, but when you get this so close to the beginning, I mean, you've gone through a tough training camp, a couple preseason games, your roster's stressed a little bit injury-wise, then to take away resources for that team, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But at the same time, I understand why they do it. It's just, for us, I think it'd be much better the more players we had.
Is it a hard balance sometimes, like Steve Kerr, for example, maybe he could make an active roster somewhere else, that the idea of his development as a player, he's worked so hard to make an active roster, you factor that in, obviously you want to keep him on yours and your practice squad, but you factor in a player's development or their personal aspect, or is it just got to be about the franchise?
Yeah, I think the first and foremost thing is the Green Bay Packers and what's best for the Green Bay Packers. But at the same time, I do think that you have to be, aware of what's best for the player as well. But at the end of the day, it's the number one thing that matters here is what's best for the Green Bay Packers.
I'm not sure how to ask this, so I'm just gonna.
You don't have to. It's fine.
I got fans even sending pictures from practice when you and the quarterback are talking to each other and you're laughing and smiling. How do you kind of think that for whatever crap was going on this offseason, being face to face and being around each other, do you think that things are, I don't want to ask about your relationship, but you know what I mean? Like, you guys kind of getting somewhere?
There's a lot I appreciate about Aaron, but one thing that I've always appreciated about him is his professionalism and like how important winning is to him, And that's the thing I think pretty much everyone around here, that's the goal around here. That's always the goal, right, is to win. And we got a great opportunity in front of us. I've had some really productive conversations with him, but he's focused. There's no doubt about that. I think our team's focused, and I think we all understand the opportunity we have, and no one wants to get in the way of that.